From the ease at which he travels the world to the fact that he's almost invincible, here are some of the top things that don't make any sense in the John Wick franchise. Now, before y'all come at me, there's no denying John Wick is a masterpiece when it comes to action films. But honestly, some parts of the franchise are just too hard to buy. Like, can somebody explain how Wick travels around the globe so quickly? I mean, we see him jet-setting from New York to Rome to Casablanca, all within a matter of hours. It's pretty impressive to say the least. However, it's also a little hard to believe. In reality, it's not so simple to travel internationally, especially with all the security measures in place. In the movies, we see John Wick traveling with just a carry-on bag, often not even bothering to check in at the airport. Anyone who's traveled before knows that's not how it goes. In real life, passengers are screened multiple times before even getting near their gate. Additionally, John Wick never seems to have any issues with customs or visas, which is also pretty unrealistic. Of course, we have to suspend our disbelief to some extent when watching action movies like this one, but sometimes the ease at which he travels can take us out of the experience. I've often found myself wondering how he managed to get on some flight without a passport, or how he avoided being detained at some border checkpoint. I know it's a minor detail, but one that definitely doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't end there. There's another thing the film doesn't pay nearly enough attention to: the lack of consequences for the massive amounts of property damage he does. We see John Wick and his enemies shooting up hotels, nightclubs, museums, and even entire city blocks, often leaving behind a trail of destruction. Yet there are never any repercussions for this. No lawsuits, no arrests, no fines, nothing. In real life, such actions would most certainly have consequences, but in the movies, it seems like property damage is just par for the course when it comes to action scenes. It's as if the filmmakers have adopted the mindset of, if it looks cool, it's worth it, all without considering the real-life ramifications.
Maybe I should have.
Rules and consequences.
Seems like everyone is suffering from the consequences of their actions.
And you're not stepping down.
Some may argue that the lack of consequences is part of the movie's appeal. After all, we are watching a movie about a hitman who goes on a rampage of revenge, so maybe it's not supposed to be realistic. But for many, the lack of consequences may be too far-fetched. It can be jarring to see an entire building getting destroyed without any mention of the potential loss of life or the cost of rebuilding. I mean, in this economy, it's a bit too unrealistic. And if you've ever thought this was unrealistic, I'm sure you've wondered about his seemingly never-ending health bar. We see John Wick getting shot, stabbed, and beaten, yet he always seems to bounce back quickly, sometimes even within a matter of minutes. His health seems to be top-notch at all times. It's a testament to his toughness and resilience, but it's not exactly realistic. In real life, even minor injuries can take days or even weeks to heal, let alone major ones like gunshot wounds or broken bones. Yet we see John Wick getting back on his feet almost immediately after sustaining these types of injuries. It's as if he's some kind of superhuman. Of course, movies often take liberties with reality.
To pay for what I've done, I seek a meeting with the one who sits above the table.
Listo.
However, the unrealistic recovery time can still be a bit jarring for some viewers. It can make us wonder how he's able to keep going despite his injuries and take away from the stakes of the action scenes. On the other hand, some may argue that the quick recovery time is part of what makes John Wick such an exciting character. After all, if he were down for the count after every injury, it'd be impossible for him to continue fighting. But for other fans, the lack of realistic consequences for his injuries can be too much to overlook, but not as much as the lack of security in seemingly high-security locations. See, the whole premise of John Wick is him infiltrating heavily guarded places like hotels, museums, and even a continental branch, which is supposed to be a sanctuary for assassins.
See? That's why you're special, John Wick. I wouldn't have stopped. It's good to have you back.
yet he's able to slip past security guards and cameras with little difficulty. In real life, places like these would have multiple layers of security, including guards, cameras, alarms, and other measures to prevent unauthorized access. Yet in the John Wick movies, it seems like these measures are easily bypassed, sometimes with just a clever disguise or a well-timed distraction. Then again, sometimes movies can't always be realistic, especially action movies, because if everything went as the way it would in real life, let's be honest, things would be a little bit dull. But that still doesn't take away from the fact that the lack of security can kind of be distracting. Like, how can the films portray these places as secure if anyone can bypass their defenses? It just seems a bit too convenient for the plot, doesn't it? But the thing is, the franchise actually has left a lot of threads loose for the sake of plot convenience, like the inconsistency in the rules of the assassin underworld. We're introduced to a complex world with its own set of rules, codes, and protocols, but sometimes these rules seem to be conveniently forgotten or ignored for the sake of the plot. For example, we're told that there's a strict code of conduct among assassins. This includes not killing on continental grounds, but we see this rule being broken multiple times throughout the movies without any real consequences. It's as if the rules only apply when it's convenient for the plot. But that's not all. Another example of inconsistency is the way the High Table operates. We're told that it's an international organization that oversees and enforces the rules of the assassin world, yet we see the continental hotels being able to operate independently with little interference. It's also not clear how the High Table's power is enforced, as we see different assassins and factions openly defying its authority. The inconsistencies in the rules can take away from the immersion of the movie's world building. Plus, it can be confusing to keep track of what rules apply and what rules don't. And I don't know about you, but every time they introduce some big concept, I'm left wondering if it actually matters or if they'll ignore it later on. And this isn't where inconsistencies end. One of the biggest questions everyone has about the film is, where is all of his seemingly endless supply of weapons and ammunition coming from? We see Wick carrying and using multiple firearms throughout the movies, but we never see him stopping to restock or resupply. While it is possible that he could be carrying a lot of weapons and ammunition on his person, it is unlikely that he could carry enough to last through the kind of extended gun battles we see in the movies. It's also not clear where he's getting his weapons and ammunition from. We see him exchanging gold coins for various goods and services, but it's never shown how he acquires his weapons and ammunition. This can be especially frustrating for viewers who like a sense of realism in their action movies. Without an explanation for how John Wick is able to maintain his arsenal, it can be hard to suspend disbelief and fully immerse oneself in the world of the movie. For some viewers, it can be a distraction and a source of confusion. I know it was for me. Anyway, those are the top unexplained things in the John Wick movies.